Hi everyone, and welcome to another Stukent expert session. In this expert session, we have the privilege of hearing from Veena Ramaswamy. Veena is the Vice President of Strategy and Corporate Development at CommonBond. In this session, Veena talks about 3 real-life experiences she's had relating to consumer behavior. She goes over why it's important to do your research before a client meeting and how to not buckle under the pressure of a deal. We're excited to hear from you, Veena. Take it away.
Hi, my name is Veena Ramaswamy, and I'm currently VP of Strategy and Corporate Development at CommonBond, where I work on strategic partnerships and M&A or acquisitions. I began my career as an investment banker, focused on working with municipalities to raise debt to fund infrastructure projects such as roads, bridges, tunnels. And then I later worked with universities similarly, but on raising debt for capital projects like dorms and stadiums on campus. I then spent a few years in corporate strategy and M&A at a large bank, and now here I am running strategy and M&A at CommonBond. So why is consumer behavior important in a finance and strategy function? Surprisingly, even as a finance and strategy professional, there are really consumers in each function and role that you have. And it may not be in the traditional sense as we all think of as a consumer in a marketing function in a direct-to-consumer business. So for example, consumer behavior in a banking role is really around external clients that you are helping and winning business from. And consumer behavior in a strategy role is around internal clients or stakeholders that you need to get buy-in or alignment from. They are the quote-unquote consumers of your product. So I'm going to walk through a few examples of how understanding and learning consumer behavior were extremely critical in different roles and responsibilities I've had through my career. The first example is winning a deal in investment banking. My role as an analyst was to provide leverage to my senior bankers through analytical and executional rigor on the deal. This was done through working with clients to help them raise municipal debt through the capital markets. So the example I'd like to walk through around winning a deal in investment banking is when we were pitching a state treasurer on a bond deal, and we were at a dinner in New York City. It was me, my MD, along with the state treasurer. So in this example, the state treasurer was a consumer, and now I needed to understand his needs and mindset to help my team win the deal. The markets were a bit volatile leading up to this dinner, and we had been pitching this deal for a while. I could tell that the state treasurer was nervous and hesitating to make a call. So when my boss went to the bathroom, the treasurer looked at me and said, "So Veena, what do you think I should really do here?" Now, understanding what I knew about him at this point and his worry about the market volatility, I told him if it were me, I'd get my ducks in order, including legal docs, rating agency review, etc., but wait it out since they were in a financial position to do so. He appreciated me not quote-unquote pushing the deal to happen now, as many bankers typically do, that he awarded my team the business to do that deal, and we waited it out. We ended up doing that deal a few months later, and because of our transparency, honesty, and quality of service, we were awarded every major deal from this client for the next few years. This story is a great example of how taking the time to understand the real concerns of my consumer helped me address his concerns in a way that showed that I understood his position, and through that built trust and then ultimately the deal. The next example I'd like to walk you through is launching a new product as a general manager. This is more of a traditional example for a consumer behavior context, but I think important nonetheless. When I was a general manager of a new direct-to-consumer product, we were starting from scratch. So understanding consumer behavior was at the crux of making this product and launch efforts a success. Not just for building and designing the product and marketing strategy, but also for getting investors on board with their plan. So what did we do? We launched a survey. We wanted to better understand consumer wants and needs, and doing so by going straight to the horse's mouth, so they say. A few important things that I learned from this experience include, number 1, consumers really don't know what they need unless it's an option or put right in front of them. Number 2, people might say yes to a new product or service on a survey, but in reality may not actually take you up on it. Saying you'll do something and actually do something are 2 very different things. So you really have to understand what the foundational need they have when you're creating a product or service. And finally, the thing that I learned from this experience was learning and adapting. And so this story is a great example of how learning the underlying customer needs is most important when creating and launching new products. Everyone can build and launch new products, but if they're not solving an actual unmet customer need, you'll never be successful. The final example I'd like to walk through is on the M&A side and through the process of acquiring a company. In an M&A transaction, there are multiple stakeholders and consumers. There are internal folks, including you, your management team, your board. Then there are external folks at the company that you're hoping to acquire. That company's CEO, founding team, advisors, investors. And then the last bucket of consumers in an M&A deal is lawyers. Lots of them time on both sides. So while serving very different roles, they are all my consumers on an M&A deal. The example I want to share here is from when I was in a competitive process for an acquisition of a target company, and my company knew we were the smallest person in this process, or smallest company in this process as a buyer. Rather than cave to that perceived weakness, I spent some time getting to know and understand all the motivations of the various stakeholders or consumers. Again, as I mentioned, the internal management, so my company's management board, as well as the external management, so the target company's founding team and board, and again, lawyers on both sides. What I learned was what was most important to the founder and advisors of the target company, which was to keep running the business and to maintain control and power over it, as well as having say and a feeling of being important and feeling heard. I then had to convince our internal stakeholders of this approach and how creating a proposal that focused on addressing these needs was how we would stand out from the pack of other competitors in this bidding process. As a result, we were able to show that we valued those things too for the target company founder. We ended up winning the deal and closing the transaction, and knowing what I know now, realized we were in fact the best outcome for this company, and I think the founder realized that too. The story is a great example of how there can be multiple consumers in this deal. Again, as I mentioned, internal stakeholders, our management team, external stakeholders, target company's management team, as well as lawyers. And understanding each person's needs and motivations and responding to them individually but in service of a common purpose is ultimately what made our acquisition successful.